Security regulations you wrote apply to you too. This was my first security gig right out of the military. Good starter job for security work. It was access control at a medium-sized aircraft engine factory. Friend of mine worked HR there, but he also held the title as head of security. So he offered me a job and I accepted. One of the biggest rules were ID checks. Apparently a few years prior, a couple of people had gotten in with photocopied IDs. So after that we had to physically check that the ID was plastic. We did this by touching it. Now, do access control enough and you start to memorize people. We didn't check those IDs by touching them because we knew them, and if they had been fired we would have gotten a notice. Well, that angered the head of HR, so she set some new rules. She wasn't the head of security, but security fell under HR, so she kind of was. All IDs must be checked. No exceptions. No non-employee is allowed through the gate without a notice signed by her or the head of the security, and has to be submitted 12 hours prior to their entry. Like for people scheduled for interviews, visitor badges assigned without prior approval can only be done for normal delivers, like the post office or FedEx. Anyone who violates it will be reported by security to HR for a security violation. That was fine and dandy. We really didn't care. Everything went smooth for about a month until that one day. Here she comes to the gate, but she isn't driving. Her husband is. It is raining, and I mean flood level raining. I asked her husband for his ID and he says he didn't have one. She seen where this was going and tried to stop me. He was only there to take her in because it was raining and she didn't want to walk from her car to the building and ruin her outfit. That's when I threw the rules back to her. I didn't have a security notice for him, so I couldn't assign a badge and couldn't let him in. She tried but it's only 100 yards, which again I reminded her of the rules she set down. She actually said, "Well, I'm your boss." Technically she wasn't. "We're going in anyways," which I replied again her rule that any breaches of policy must be reported as a security violation. So there she is, dressed to the nines, forced to walk without a jacket to the building, 100 yards in the rain to get to her office. Why didn't we lend her security rain jacket, you ask? Because she said there wasn't enough money in the security budget to buy them. Later that day she modified the rules that on drop-offs that security has full discretion to allow someone entry for that purpose. We also got our rain jackets 2 weeks later and she never bothered security again. This is beautiful. The jackets meant she got the point. Basically the same situation, but it was on a military base. The leader for the Brownies Little Girls Club wanted the keys to the building that they used. Part of my job was key control, so I asked her for ID. She, in the middle of the empty det, threw a total meltdown. "Don't you know who I am, bitch? My purse is out in the car." I gave one of the corporals the keys and got her to sign for them. Once the corporal got a look at her license, guess who was driving on a suspended license? Being strict about security is fine, but that's what you get for not buying your security some rain gear. My story. I worked in a high-security site and I was in charge of a bit of it that was covered by extra security regulations laid down by the specific government department we were doing work for. Only people on the specific access list were allowed in. And I was the one who decided who went on the list, as I was the one who knew whether any particular person required to be in that area. Fast forward and I get called down there by the head of the security, who is spitting feathers. He had been refused entry and wanted someone's head. Specifically, he wanted the head of the person who refused him entry. "I am the head of security, don't you know?" Quote. In front of the head of security, I asked this person if they recognized the head of security. No. I asked if he checked his ID. Yes. Did he check his name against the access list? Yes. Was the head of the security's name on it? No. In front of the head of the security, I commended this person on his diligence and said that I would be placing a letter acknowledging his diligence would be placed on his record with HR. I turned to the head of the security and said that if he needed access to send me a memo stating the specific reason for me to allow access, and I firmly closed the door in his face. I found out later he went to the government department and tried to get his entire security force put on the access list and had been firmly rebuffed. Damn, he was annoyed. Oh man, I was waiting for HR lady. Well, I'm your boss, and I can allow people in. So I'm telling you to allow him in. Op. Sorry ma'am. The rules are quite clear. There must be written permission 12 hours in advance. If you don't like the rules, take it up with our. Loved this one cause she also embarrassed herself in front of her spouse. She asked for it. I wish I remember the recent Judge Dredd comic where Dredd got security checked by a rookie. Some sub-commander was mad about it but Dredd was not, as that was exactly what the rules were. CEO of the large hospitality chain I used to work for gave £100 to a colleague for demanding an ID before letting him back of house, despite knowing who he was. Edit. Gave. Slow clap. How long ago was this? I hope she didn't retaliate. Beautiful. I've been asking for years to have better, more winter jackets for us security where I work, and yet nothing. Good to see some malicious compliance got you those jackets. And fuck our. I'm surprised there wasn't a "do you know who I am" in there somewhere. And next time she gets dropped off, turn away the husband. These, at your discretion, exceptions are there to get you fired. It is at your discretion until it isn't. I can just imagine someone arriving for an interview or something only to be denied entry due to the prior notice having been issued 10 hours prior and thus being late due to having to wait an extra 2 hours for the security notice to reach the required 12 hours. Beautiful and most excellent. Okay, sign. Because we knew them, and if they had been fired we would have gotten a notice. Relying in security to always get this notice seems much more likely to fail than scanning every badge every time, so this is in fact that correct way of doing things. The company wouldn't happen to rhyme with Noel's Choice by any chance? Kudos to you for sticking to the rules, and kudos to her for understanding the problem she accidentally caused and solving it. Having recently entered the security policy making sure a business on a different context, it's far too easy to misjudge the impact of one small change to them policy. In this day and age, security is no fucking joke. Just because you recognize someone doesn't mean you should let them in. Even if they have a badge that isn't working on an electronic lock, you don't buzz them in. What if they were fired yesterday and their badge is now brick? Now they're just looking for some sucker to let them in so they can go postal. And if you change a rule, you better follow that rule, even if you're the one to make the rule. That lady should have sucked it up and been prepared for next time. Better than having people dead.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.